Hey, Benjamin, thanks for coming on the show.
Hey, my pleasure. Excited to be here.
Yeah, absolutely. So tell us about yourself.
I've been in system and business automation for almost 20 years. I started this journey going from Australia to Hong Kong. I'd
Mhm.
fly into Hong Kong. I'd have a $2,500 credit card budget, and I'd buy any product. Like I would buy bedazzled bra straps and would sell these things online. And I had a $2,500 budget because that was what the credit card was back then, way back in the day, right? And the interesting thing with that is that I had 30 days to work out how to sell this stuff online, right? And this is back in the day of Yahoo stores. And fast forward to today, I can remember a few years ago, I had an IRS tax debt, right? Not
Hmm.
sexy. It's pretty scary. And because that debt was only at the time like 6 grand or whatever it is, and I got the letter from the IRS, scared as hell, didn't know what the hell was going on. I called around to a whole bunch of tax firms. And you know what? A lot of them laughed at me because it was under $10,000. They didn't want to help me. Couldn't help me. And I didn't realize that now, 4, 5 years later, maybe it's longer than that, that now I'm actually helping others learn how to solve their IRS tax issues.
Okay.
And I didn't realize how much of an impact that would have on my life and my journey. And now we're literally helping, where we employ former IRS agents and literally share the secrets of how to settle and solve your tax debt yourself, so you don't have to pay tax firms.
Interesting. Let's roll back the clock a little bit and start at the beginning. Where are you from? Like, where were you born and
Australia
raised?
originally, or I usually tell people South Boston. So it's
Okay.
just on the other side of the Bronx type thing. And some people are like, oh yeah, that kind of makes sense. And I'm like, well, you clearly don't travel that much, do you? But originally from Australia. So yeah, we've got an Australian talking about IRS stuff in the US here.
So what was it like growing up in Australia?
Very similar to Florida, just more kangaroos and more things that'll kill you, just besides the women. But yeah, very, very tropical, very fun. Um, and it's just a different way of life. But when I was in Florida, most people were saying, hey, do you miss it? And I'm like, well, no, there's palm trees, no, there's gators, and no, there's storms that come in all the freaking time here too. So you know what? No, it's like you feel very home in Florida.
Gotcha. Did you get your entrepreneurship spirit from your parents? Were they entrepreneurs as well?
My parents they both had their own businesses. Yeah. So I knew when I went to university for criminology. So that's where I was applying human behavior stuff.
Hmm.
And then I just fell, instead of doing criminology on criminals, which is what I wanted to do, I ended up doing criminology on marketing and sales, and
Gotcha.
constantly applying that to business. But yeah, so my family is all pretty entrepreneurial.
Okay. Did you work in your parents' business as a kid? Did you get some of your core I know I asked that question in a certain way because like a lot of times people get life experiences that matter and
Mhm.
impact them in a positive way from working in the parents' business. Was that the case for you?
Yeah, I learned a lot of valuable lessons. And I know at one point in time, my parents had a big divorce. So I got to
Okay.
see like two different perspectives on life play out then, because you had the conservative approach and then you had the super high risk approach. And then you kind of see the pros and cons of both of these approaches. The one parent that would gamble at all, and the one parent that would be very conservative, but like it's like that rabbit in the hare approach. So yeah, I think I learned a lot from that. I was meant to take over a family law firm, hence why I have a law degree.
Okay.
But at that point in time, law was just never the thing that really excited me.
It's interesting considering where you are today and what you're doing. So were your parents attorneys or did they have other businesses? Were they
One of
both?
my parents was an attorney, and my other parent uh, professional services, or would run properties, or hotels and pubs, and yeah, the whole gamut of things. So yeah, so my father was the attorney, and that's what he did all his life and devoted his entire life to it. And he literally just retired.
Okay.
But one of the big lessons I learned over the last few years was literally the like he had a huge prostate cancer scare. And like this was 6 months before he was about to retire.
Hmm.
And I'm like, damn, like why am I working 80 hours a week, burning myself out, not taking the vacations, not having fun, not enjoying life, because like that retirement isn't guaranteed, right?
Yeah.
So like I restructured everything I did, and I run all my businesses now completely remotely.
Hmm.
I run them from anywhere around the world. My team's completely virtual. So that way we really focus on balancing our life and enjoyment. And I think there's that really forces you to run a company differently. And I'm even trying to move over the next 12 months our company to a 4-day work week.
Interesting.
And I believe that we could even possibly achieve a 3-day work week, but be yet be still be paying people the same amount. So that's kind of exciting. Like these are those things where those lessons that you think at the time are like are pretty scary and daunting, but like if you kind of grab hold of them, you can do something amazing
Okay. That brings up a question. So you went to college. Where'd you go to college?
in Australia.
In
So
Australia.
yeah, I went to college in Australia,
Which school did you go to?
Bond University.
Okay, and you went there for a law?
Yeah, so law and criminology. So it was a dual degree that I was doing. So well, law and psychology, criminology was under the psychology thing at that point in time.
Okay, and your dad the one that sort of said, "Hey, you should really get into law," or was it like having work in his law office that you're like, "Hey, you know what? This is a pretty sweet gig. I think I could do this." Like, what
Yeah, no, I
inspired you?
didn't. I didn't work in the law office. I went in as criminology first, and then
Okay.
I'm like, oh well, I may as well just bolt on a law degree because, like, you know what, it's only going to be another year, so like, what's it really
Hmm.
matter?
Yep.
But that then I didn't realize that what would happen is then I'd start doing it all by distance. It took me 6 years to graduate rather than
Wow.
the estimated two.
So, why did you decide criminology? Was it something that happened in your life that was like, "Hey, this is what I want to do," or was it more of a um, what caused you to go that direction, having parents that were both entrepreneurs?
It's just the fascination with human behavior, right? And the fascination with the criminal profilers and those type of people on the TV shows at the time in the late 90s and things like that. Like those shows were all the big ones. And I was just very interested in that perspective. And I've always been involved in the self-help space. I did a lot of work for people in the self-help arena, building their entire systems and their business models, and they're automating their businesses and building 30,000 member communities in 2 or 3 weeks using human behavior perspectives. And even when I went in to start doing technology related work, I was applying human behavior elements
Hmm.
to software design, system design. So I look at it like, what is the user actually doing, rather than like, what are we trying to achieve here? Because like sometimes they're two different problems.
Gotcha. So when you started and you got your criminology degree and your law degree, you weren't really thinking you'd be using it for what you did today. You were maybe thinking to be a police officer or an attorney, and it just spun into this whole new direction that you're like, hey, I'm having more fun doing this. So after school, did you immediately go over to Hong Kong, or what did you do prior to getting to
Now,
Hong
I was
Kong?
flying back and forth to Hong Kong when I was 16 years old.
Oh,
So
really?
my
Okay.
parents at the time were pretty open, pretty flexible. So when I was 16, I'd literally jump on a plane for a week. I'd go over to Hong Kong and I'd come back. Um, so
Did
those
you have family
16 to
there, or
21,
was it just like, hey, just
uh,
gonna get on a plane and go visit somewhere?
yeah, just gonna go visit somewhere. So yeah, so those few years I was doing that every few months, going to the trade shows and expos. My family thought I was crazy because I was doing it, but you know what? I learned some ridiculous lessons that just have been some of the best memories of my life.
Okay, so let me get this straight. Before you went to college, you were going to these expos in another country by yourself,
Yeah,
at 16, getting like
that's when I started.
$2,500 worth of like product, selling it in 30 days, and just rinse, wash, repeat. Um, okay, well, this changes my
So yeah,
whole.
you start doing that, right? And then
Yeah,
people are like, "What the hell are you doing?" Like because this is back in the day of Yahoo stores, right? Like Yahoo stores was the only way you could really sell online back in the
yeah.
early 2000s, right? And we were doing that, and then I'd take a group of people over. So then what would happen is this group of people would end up paying for
Hmm.
my entire trip to go over there. And so my trip cost me nothing. I'm like, yeah, I'm doing this. And I got rid of the expense of the travel and the hotel and all this type of stuff. So now I get to buy more stuff, right? And it's just, yeah, rinse and repeat, rinse and repeat. And
So
then
these people that you brought over, were they classmates or were they like business people? Who were they?
um, business people, people who wanted to start a business, people never, it was never classmates. I never told classmates what I was doing. I never shared what I was doing in that regard. It was
Hmm.
always just something I was just doing myself, doing online.
Did you have any shocking stories being a 16-year-old going to another country with a bunch of random strangers, it sounds like? Do you have any shocking stories of something that may have happened on one of your trips?
Oh, there's always interesting stories. I can remember we went to dinner one night and you sit down, they literally put the chairs in the middle of the road. And then they blocked off the road for the dinner table. So then the drinks were coming on one side of the road, the food was coming on another side of the road. And there's always experiences when you travel, but that's part of the joy, right?
Absolutely. So I'm kind of curious. You bought $2,500 worth of product because you had a credit card for 2,500 bucks. How much did you make off of that $2,500 as a 16-year-old?
I think I always try to double the money. So I think we ended up making 4 to 5 grand. After expenses, I sold cameras online. I
Okay.
can remember the very first sale I made. That's the one sale that always kind of lives in your mind, right? Like you wake up in the morning and like I saw a $500 sale, right? This was for some like action camera before even GoPros were around. Like there was all these cameras, right?
Hmm.
So I think I made 250 bucks on this transaction. Um, and I got the merchant statement, came in, didn't believe it. I'm like, what? There's like what? There's $250 what? Like so then I called the bank and I'm like, is this real? Like, is this the real thing? And then they're starting to talk to me like, what do you mean is this real? Like you should be telling us this is real. Like why are you questioning us if the transaction isn't this your website? And so I was doing that type of stuff. And yeah, it was yeah, like that first sale is always the thing. You just like you're sitting there like, I can be rich if I could just sell 100 of these a day.
Yeah, absolutely, absolutely. So, okay, were you doing the Yahoo store in college when you were getting your degree as well and going back and forth? And
Yeah, I was doing a whole bunch of stuff. So like I was doing that. I was running an internet cafe pool hall at one time. I was consulting to law firms. At one point in time, I was running the property division of 3 different law firms I was consulting to, and I didn't even have a law degree. So it's just kind of like
how old
I
were you
just
at the
knew how to
time when you were
operate.
doing
So
that?
I was 21.
21. Okay.
So there's one story when I was 21, right? So I had some money at the time and I was just like I saw a Shelby Cobra, right? And then I saw this replica Shelby Cobra that this guy built. Had it listed online. I'm like, I want to go buy that, right? So I drive the hour to go see this guy's car, right? And I pull up and he's like, is somebody else coming? I'm like, no, why would somebody else be coming? And he's like, well, you're not buying this, are you? And I'm like, yeah, yeah. Why would I not be buying this? He goes, I can't let you drive this thing. He goes, there's no way you're buying this thing. You're just a tire kicker. I'm like, just take me around the block. So he takes me around the block, wouldn't even let me drive it, wouldn't even let me sit in the driver's seat, right? Um, and yet tells me what the price is, all this type of stuff. And I said, all right, I'll be back in 3 days. I'll bring you a check. Uh, and I go, like, if I bring you a bank check, you'll hand me everything. And I can drive off, right? And he's like, yeah, all right. He goes, whatever. We won't see you later. 3 days later, I show up and I said I was going to show up. And I'm like, dude, I'm ready. Let's go. Here's the check. Thanks for coming. He didn't even believe. He goes, hold on, let me take this to the bank. And he thought I was giving him a fake check, right? Because a 21-year-old buying this replica
Yeah, right?
Shelby
Yeah.
Cobra. And yeah, I used to call that my smiley car because when you got in that car, you couldn't help but smile.
And how much was that car worth at that time?
The car, Australian dollars was about 40 grand.
Okay, and what year was that?
That was 2000. I had that in 2004.
You still have that car?
No. I ended up selling it. So I'm in Arkansas now. So I sold that car probably about a year or so later.
Hmm.
Made about 15, 20 grand or something like that on that car at that point in time.
Gotcha. When did you decide to move from Australia to the States?
2010.
2010. What made you decide to jump ship out of Australia and come here to the States?
Well, there was a woman at the time, so I got married to a Canadian.
Hmm.
So I went to Canada at first, and then I was flying usually once a month or twice a month. I was flying to different parts of the US. And then I'm like, damn it, this is just getting too much. I'm spending too many days in airports and just
Hmm.
dealing with stuff, right? And when you're trying to run a business and partner with people in the US and you're in Canada and you're going back and forth, like people don't realize like sometimes it's a full day and a bit sometimes of travel, right? You
Hmm.
get stuck at airports, you've got all the stuff you're dealing with, and then you've lost those full days of productivity,
Yeah.
right? So it then takes reset days and all this type of stuff to kind of keep moving along. So we just ended up packing up our stuff and we moved to Florida, and that was kind of it.
So, was it a culture shock coming from Australia to the States and to Canada? What was that like for you?
Yeah, so Australia to the US and even Canada was a massive culture shock. Things like Costco don't exist. Like the way Walmart is set up doesn't really exist.
Hmm.
Just the product diversity, right? And with everything also being so big here, like yeah, we go to Vegas and you go see it and you get, oh my gosh, like look at all this stuff. Look at the food. Like, yeah, it is it's a different way of life. But at the end of the day, people are people and human behaviors are the same pretty much all around the world.
Okay.
Um, and yeah, like I've designed my entire company right now. We're scaling a company to in excess of $100 million, and I run it virtually from an RV that I get to travel around North America. Like you can't complain about that.
Absolutely not. So, in 2010, you moved here. Are you running the same company now that you ran then, or is it a different company?
No, it's all been an evolution. So the automation business is literally a rebrand of a company that we launched in 2019.
Hmm.
We're doing a lot of research and a lot of work in human behavior at that point in time, and things like that, and along with AI tools and chatbots and stuff like that. I was building chatbots before ChatGPT really existed. And now it's really a culmination of, funny enough, a lot of the things we've done over the last 10 years. We've rebranded, we've refocused it. So we've got our own in-house automation AI teams, and then we're building out our financial services, tax services businesses where we're all fully IRS registered and endorsed and that type of thing. So it's one main brand that's literally become the umbrella brand for everything we've been doing for the
What's the
last.
brand name that your umbrella brand is?
So it's Automate Boring is the automation division in the
Hmm.
automation teams, and then it's automated tax credits is everything that we're doing for tax credits and tax business grants and funding and things along those lines.
Interesting. I was just talking to someone just the other day about business funding. Do you help businesses get funded, or do you just sort of give them the tools to do it themselves?
So right now we've been focused on tax grants or credits and tax debts, tax liens, all that type
Hmm.
of things, like helping people settle that because there's 20 million people a year who have owe the IRS money, right?
Hmm.
Our goal for later this year, or I should say early, just like Q1, Q2 next year, is to literally move into the business grants or grant approval process and help
Okay.
people automate because there's in excess of 200,000 grants, types of grants, local grants, small grants, farming grants, you name it. There's grants for everything, but most people
Hmm.
don't even know where it is, don't know how to access it. And even if they can access it, how do you complete the paperwork? How do you jump through the hoops to even like make it available? So our goal is literally through our AI tools is to be able to ask you a whole bunch of questions. You can answer a few questions, and literally can go and find every matching available grant for you, and then help you actually apply for that grant. So because that's also a fascinating industry, right? Where people they charge fees up to $25,000 to write one grant application,
That's true.
with
Yeah.
with no guarantee of success, and they usually take a success fee on the back end. Some of them take up to I've seen up to 50% as a success fee, like
Crazy.
of a grant, which could be I get it, it can be up to millions of dollars. Awesome, right? But it's a huge process, and just that is I see the automation opportunities with AI and what we do there on being able to make life easier for people. Like, because what happens if your business could be applied for 10 grants and
Hmm.
it took you less than 30 minutes to make that possible, but that could be hundreds of thousands of dollars in benefits for you. We also do the things with the same thing we're doing with the tax credits for people, like literally analyzing your tax returns and going, hey, you missed out on these deductions, these tax credits. Like one of the things what we did this year, where we did in excess of 30,000 applications for people, was the self-employment tax credit.
Yeah.
Right, that's the one that with the COVID tax relief credit for people who are self-employed. Everyone's heard about ERTC, which is the one for employers and big companies,
Hmm.
but most people aren't even aware that there was one that was also released for 1099 independent contractors. They got them access to $32,000. We did the same automation where we helped people file amendments and they didn't have to worry about it. So it's those type of things that there's massive opportunity with, I believe, over the next few years.
I have a couple questions for you because you brought up just a lot of questions in my mind. Um, in reference to like profitability, like you mentioned that the grant writer writes one grant for $25,000, and I personally have seen that in my history as well, where they charge an arm and a leg. Um, how do you make money? Because obviously you're
So
not
we
charging like
we do everything
$25,000 for
as
a
a flat
grant,
fee.
a
Yeah,
flat
so we
fee.
do everything as a flat fee. So like even in comparison, so I can give you the comparison right now. So in the tax debt space to remove set up an installment plan. Most of our competitors are charging anywhere from 4,000 to $12,000, $15,000 to literally help you set up an installment plan with the IRS, right? What
Hmm.
they call negotiate with the IRS.
Yeah.
We charge a flat fee of $400, one time flat fee. We also give you the training, so an online video course from former IRS agents showing you what to do and how to do it yourself. You can get access to that online training for as little as $9, right? So the thing is if you
$9?
want to go, yeah, $9. If you want to go do it
Okay.
yourself, you can literally get access to the training online, watch it for $9. Because we know that the next challenge most people have is with um, filling in the forms, because the IRS forms are complicated and like, hey, this is a 6-page form and there's one main checkbox you've got to tick. But like they
Mhm.
get overwhelmed before they get to that. So we've created Form Assistance, which is our AI tools, and simplified filling in those forms. And they start as little as $97.
Okay.
And then on the grant writing process, we want to do it the exact same way. So it's just like, hey, you might pay $500, might pay $1,000, but literally, hey, we'll actually help you apply to. We can see that your business, because of the classifications and everything, there could be 50 grants that you could apply to. Let alone you getting the reminders of, hey, there's 5 new grants that just got released and they got a deadline of Q4 this year, whatever it is. Do you want us to apply for them for you? Like that's going to flip that entire opportunity on its head, because there's one of the sad things with grants is these grants get publicized and they show, yeah, we've got $100 million that we're giving away, but they never tell you how much they've actually given away and what they
Hmm.
don't. And when you actually look at the reports, there's much of those funds aren't claimed.
And so you built AI bots on a very reasonable scale, and you're pushing this out to get in the mass market. What's your advertising budget? Because you can't be low. You probably having to spend like a bloody fortune to get this out to people.
Well, we do a lot of optimization and testing, and I know over the last 3 weeks, we've reduced our lead costs from $50 a lead to $18 a lead, or $12 a lead is our lowest lead cost right now. So we do a lot of advertising costs. I know our competitors spend in excess of $5 million a month,
Okay.
just in the tax debt space alone. So we're certainly scaling and growing our ad spend, but we're optimizing it in a way that they don't.
Are you
And
using
bringing
automation to do that?
Yeah. So we're using automation. I can tell you about one of the automations we just built. So we built an AI automation team that
Mhm.
literally is doing AI split testing of our landing pages. So instead of right now, most people do their landing pages manually, right? So you'll create one version, you'll create a second version. We actually created an AI feedback loop, which is pretty impressive. So we'll actually have AI create a split test version of our page. So it'll write the copy, it'll launch the copy. But in that, when we have it writing the copy, right,
Hmm.
there's an AI team. They call them crews, or this model's agentics model, are creating different agents. All right, we've got AI copywriters. I got an AI editor. I got an AI reviewer for compliance. I got an AI legal. So our copy goes through this process. It creates the copy for the landing page. That landing page then gets hand off to our development AI team to launch this landing page, right? We've then got an AI team, which is then analyzing the data. So I've got like a quant team and an AI split testing team, which then will literally launch and then optimize the landing page based on the data that's happening in real time effectively. And we do that through the model of micro testing. So we're not going for 100% perfection, but we'll accept an 80% data. And then we can have these kind of massive improvements. Like just the other day, we took our landing page conversion from 3% to 20% just in less than 48 hours. And that's a huge impact for our ad spend.
And that's
So we
all
build
done
the
by AI workers in essence. You're just sort of
AI
letting the AI
workers.
workers do their job, and then you're just sort of saying, okay, I'm having my developers write better AI code, or what does the human talent do if that's what the AI workers are doing?
Yeah, so the human talent's optimizing the deployment. So my developers that I work with, so we have our developers in-house. They're actually building their own AI agent workflow right now for quality testing
Mm-hmm.
and optimizing their software code. So we still do human code deployment, but what the AI agents are doing is going to be reviewing all of their code push, and it'll literally go through 3 verifications on what bugs or what issues are with this code. How is this code going to impact the code that's already there, right? The AI bots are going to suggest fixes and optimizations for the code. The AI bots are then going to write those fixes for then the human to actually review and deploy. And then when it goes to deployment, for example, we've got a whole feedback loop from that. So it once again goes through Q&A, goes through all the testing. We've got AI bots that are actually going to be testing all that code. So we can then deploy more frequently, but also deploy with more stability. So instead of breaking things on the run, it's just like we can push more working code on the run, and then not go, oh shit, the lights in the other room just went off because we just pushed some code here, which is what usually happens with code deployment. So
Oh,
this is all
interesting.
available now because of the new uh, AI stacks and the LLMs and all the cool stuff that's out there, and the new release that just happened with Claude, which makes like what we were doing, like it's just like, oh my God, this just takes it to a whole new level. So instead of having a team of 30, 50, 80 developers like I used to have in an office, what I can do with 2 people and this automation loop is phenomenal.
Interesting. So, you have a team of people, they all work remotely. You have, like, it sounds like hundreds and hundreds of AI workers, and doing things for your team or for your team and your business. Like, at what point in time did you see automation being like the future? And because you started selling cameras at 16 years old and you made this radical evolution to where you are today. At what point in time did you turn around and say, hey, you know what? This is it. This is, I need to shift from like having an online store to this. What was that
Yeah, well,
moment?
it was about 6 years ago I started selling automation, right?
Okay.
And this was back then it was known as robotic process automation, and most of the time it's a $250,000 software license just to get in that game, right?
Hmm.
To get in that game, you buy the software license, then you've got to train and have the team of developers who can use the software to build the stuff. So like you then upwards another 150 grand a year to do it right. So like it was a big investment for us to get in, and then we were selling these solutions to clients to run. And our automation company still does that today. Like we build robot employees to augment employees' productivity.
Interesting.
It's just now that we can just do it faster and faster and faster. So we do a lot of invoice reconciliation, data extraction, data analysis. For one client, we literally launched a typo checker for their invoicing system because a lot of typos happen in the data entry from the humans on, they put the wrong project number in. They got the client name misspelt. They've got just typos, 10 different typos that fit in an invoice.
Hmm.
Um, we do a lot of report reconciliation for clients, just extracting data because we go through their merchant statements and analyze their entire merchant statements to find missed charges or incorrect charges. For one client, they recognized over $900,000 of incorrect charges,
Wow.
which was also lost revenue for them. So massive opportunities with automation. And I saw that about 6 years ago. It's just how we can now bring that to the market is just becoming easier and easier. And I believe that we bring in very, very smart humans, and I work out how can I leverage AI to make what you do more efficient and more effective. And then how do I augment your productivity that's now working 24 hours a day with humans? So I can give you another example of a marketing automation we just built.
Yeah, please do. Yeah, go for it.
So um, uh, uh, images are always big in marketing, right? But
Of
images
course,
are
yeah.
usually a pain in the ass for a lot of people to create. But what AI can create really, really well is cartoons. So one of the things we actually do is we just built a simple automation loop that can take a blog post article. It actually summarizes that blog post article and then writes five comic. It defines five comics, cartoons, right? And what we do is we run it through an editing loop, and then literally we have AI generate a comic or a cartoon, and then share those comics to social media. And that creates engagement, and people love that type of stuff, and they share that. We can also use it in sales pages for conversions and optimizations because you're
Hmm.
starting to visualize sales copy. It becomes very, very powerful. We're also starting to do this with trending news or trending tweets to literally create these comics that then get shared as part of just an audience engagement element. It's more of an indirect marketing ploy because we were even debating, hey, we've got this comic creation tool. Like, would other businesses or would people like to use this thing for free? Because
Hmm.
then it's just drawing people to the website as a tool. It's just like, hey, here's how to communicate your message. And we're doing it a lot with tax information right now because tax is boring. So how do we make it interesting? How do we make it engaging? How do we make it more aware, right? So
Yeah, yeah.
um, it's that type of tool that AI is very powerful with, but a lot of people don't see the applications in that way, if that makes
Mhm.
sense. They don't see the direct benefit of why should I spend the money to invest in doing a tool like this. But for message communication, it becomes extremely powerful. But to have like I've tried to do this multiple times in the past, right? And I've had people on staff who were literally comics, cartoon drawing people. They'd have to digitalize stuff and like that design loop. That was a 3 week design loop because they get the design brief, they'd have to review it, they'd have to sketch stuff out, then they'd have to digitize it, and by the time they actually gave us the finished comic, right? Like we're like, yeah, well, that was good. We wanted that like 3 weeks ago. Like we're already like down the rabbit hole with other stuff, if that makes
Yeah.
sense.
Yeah, of
So
course.
that development time nowadays is amazing, like in minutes.
Interesting. Well, that brings up another question I have. So when you said you switch gears to automation, do you still keep the companies going that you had in the past where you're like, hey, I'm doing consulting work for law firms and things like that, or are they gone more to automation now? Like where what evolutions did those have? Or are they still going? Because you seem very
Uh
successful in life, so I'm curious.
sorry, ask that question again.
Absolutely. So at one point in time, you said you were doing like consulting work for law firms and different organizations. About 6 years ago, you did the switch to automation. Did you let those companies go, or did you kind of move them? Did you keep them the same, or did you move them into automation? I bring that up
No, I
because that's
yeah,
home life.
I let them go. So it's usually as I evolve and as I kind of learned. So what I think I did is I actually learned in a very diverse way, which I was learning from a lot of companies, a lot of industries, and that knowledge has allowed me to move into automation. And the automation business is kind of with a bit more diverse broad set. Like I'm just not coming from a coder perspective because I'll walk into when we walk into a business, I'll sit there and go, what do you hate doing every day? Tell me the tasks you hate doing or the ones that you've been avoiding for the last month, right? Or the
Yeah.
last 3 months. Because there's always a task. We all know what that task is, right? I'm like, well, great, let me automate that first. They're like, no, 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 no. I want you to automate this fancy marketing thing. I want you to do this other thing. Um,
How do you walk in and make a decision how you could best help them? Is it through like just conversations, or like the AI bots already give you information of how you can help them? Like how do you do that?
I always talk to people about the problems they're having. Like, what are the tasks you're avoiding? So people usually don't understand what could be automated, how they could automate things, or what they want to automate. So instead of like trying to teach them automation and trying to we usually start in the accounts team, right? Because
Hmm.
the accounts team know how to use the software they're doing, but there's these things that they hate doing, like data entry, scanning invoices, reconciling invoices, looking for typos in invoices was one example, right? We ask them, well, what do they hate? What are the tasks that are bottlenecking their productivity? right? Because they're usually small tasks that we can deliver quick wins. And I like to deliver quick wins for the team within 7 days or less. So that's what we usually do for our team. And we usually start there and then expand out. So we work on smaller projects and bigger projects. And we're trying to deliver things in 7 days or less, not take on something that's going to be a 3 week, 3 month build. And it's just like harder to see an ROI productivity for our clients.
Okay, so you mentioned you like try to get wins in 7 days or less. Do you run into losses, and how do you handle that on a customer service perspective?
Yeah, so well, there's always losses, right? So, and the thing is there's always things that take longer. We usually see that when we're working with clients, they're wanting to build tasks that are huge tasks. And I'm like, all right, well, cool. Let's just break that down. So let's break it down into actually there's 5 different stages of this project, so we can get something working today. I'll give you another example of a task, right?
Yeah, yeah.
A client was wanting us to deliver all these fancy reports and automate all these things. And one of the things that, and I said, well, what are you trying to achieve here? Well, they were saying, well, we don't want to start working on a project if we haven't received the deposit from our clients yet. I'm like, well, that makes sense because you don't want to be incurring an expense
Of course, yeah.
um, on a project. And their company is so large and their people are all over the place that they're incurring expenses often months before the deposit's being paid because people are excited to get working on projects and start doing this type of stuff. And this is a design firm. So what we do every single day is we created a bot that literally goes scans their system to go, hey, was a deposit requested, and literally has a deposit been received. And then it actually goes one step further and it goes analyzes, have hours started to be accrued for this project already?
Hmm.
And if it has, send an alert to all the project managers and the team leads and things like that to actually say, hey, stop work on this project because we haven't received funds yet. And that's improving a company's efficiency and profitability. Like that's one problem, but it's usually not a spoken of problem at the day-to-day operation level. It's spoken at the financial level. And you're like, well, why are we losing money on this? Well, the client hasn't paid, or there's just that eagerness. You've sold the client, but if they haven't paid those deposits for the elements, then you just got to be aware of that.
Gotcha. So jumping back over to the tax, you said you help remove IRS penalties, interest, and tax liens. Like, how did you come up with that idea that like, hey, this needs to happen? Like, was it from experience working with clients, or was it like a getting together and having an aha moment as a team? Where did that come from?
No, well, it came just really understanding the problem. So we started doing tax credits, right? So I built all these automations and these systems that it's gone on to do in excess of $100 million in tax credits for people. All right. So it was through that process I started dealing with the IRF, right? I started dealing with the IRS, understanding the problems, understanding that the IRS wants you to fax stuff to them
Of course,
still
yeah,
to this day, right?
yeah,
Which is extremely
nuts,
problematic for a
yeah.
lot of people, right? Or that you can't e-sign certain things, or if you do e-sign, you can't submit it in certain ways. Like it's just problematic. It's just clunky. Like I can remember even when I got registered with the IRS, I'd still have to sit on hold for 2 hours to get some questions answered. I'm like, why? Right? So now I'm like, all right, well, there's a huge problem with this. And then I started getting connected with former IRS agents and all this type of stuff, and they're telling me, yeah, there's a huge problem because it takes a lot of human effort and work, and the industry is built around high fees,
Hmm.
right? Because of the human capital time. And I know even in the accounting time, what we were doing for the tax credit we were doing, I took 2 hours of accounting work and I was able to do it in 60 seconds, complete an entire process. So now an accountant didn't need to be involved,
Gotcha.
right? So it was just that evolution. And then
So are
so
you an enrolled agent? Are you an accountant? How did you get connected to the IRS on an official level?
yeah, so I now employ enrolled agents. I'm registered with the IRS, so I have different registrations, but I'm not an enrolled agent. So I'm going through that process to become an enrolled agent, but I just have different registrations with the IRS so we can operate. But I use the expertise of our former IRS agents who are literally specialists in their field because they've done it for 20, 30 years.
Hmm.
And which is really powerful that like they've forgotten more than I could learn in the next few years. So But what we're doing is we're sitting down with them going, hey, what do you do here? How do you operate here? What do you do with this? And then going, okay, let's automate that exact process. And that's what our competitive advantage is.
Gotcha. So you pretty much are hiring old IRS agents, and then sort of saying, "Hey, let's tweak this together, and then come up with a better way to like skin the cat." That's really cool. So,
I can give you another example, right? So
please do.
a tax
Yeah,
example
yeah.
is like um, a lot of people in the restaurant game or commercial property game, you usually have to renovate those properties, right? And most people will spend 100,000 to $2 million doing a renovation on a restaurant. And I find that fascinating in for multiple levels, right? Because let's face it, 3, 5, 10 years from now, that restaurant may still not be there, right? So keep this in mind now. So we know the failure rate for these restaurants is really high, right?
Yeah.
I'm going to use restaurants. You can do this with any commercial property. Most accountants will depreciate that renovation investment. So
Hmm.
let's say you put in $1 million. They're going to depreciate that over the next 39 years, right? So your tax benefit from that depreciating asset is over 39 years. What happens if you shut down that company in 2 years because the business fails? Where does that depreciation benefit go?
I guess you got to speed up the cycle, or you just lose it.
Pretty much you lose it, right?
Yeah.
But there's one form under the safe harbor forms you can fill in, which will actually give that business owner 100% of the benefit of that $1 million renovation investment they made as in their taxes, right? So now that business, because we all know that they usually put that big expense into their restaurant, so they got a huge amount of losses in year one. But when they make all those profits in years 2 and year 3, and when they want to roll over that $1 million tax credit or that tax benefit, it could dramatically improve their profitability. Does
Hmm.
that make sense?
It does totally. Yeah.
And many accountants don't even know that this is actually an option. I was talking to an accountant just yesterday afternoon. They're like, I didn't even realize this was a toggle option that I could use in the software I was using. Like I've got clients who it would transform their business profitability because they usually are crying in year 2 because they could have a massive tax bill and we can't write off enough,
So
right?
I've
So
got two questions for you. One, like, is your target market accountants? And two, um, I'll let you answer that question first. Is your target markets accountants?
Uh, we've got two target market audiences. So we've got the one which is direct to the consumer, which is
Hmm.
people who are looking for a do-it-yourself, done-with-you solution. That's more cost effective. And because we are generating hundreds of leads per day, hundreds of clients, one of the requirements that a lot of these people have is they usually need some bookkeeping or accounting help. So therefore, we're generating a lot of leads. So a byproduct is we're actually creating a lead program for accountants or other tax professionals, tax strategists who can actually provide that work. So we have two parts of our business. The one that's the direct to the consumer to provide them that massive value of the solution there. But
Hmm.
part of that is they need bookkeeping, accounting help, which we don't, as a company, we don't want to offer directly. But indirectly, we can say, hey, I can connect you with Ed over here, who's got an accounting practice, and he specializes in exactly what you need help with. And there you go. There's the connection, right? So that's the ultimate lead, because most accountants don't want to do marketing, don't want to do sales. They want to do the bookkeeping reconciliation work.
Of course,
So
yeah.
that's where that strategic partnership and alliance is really starting to form. We're growing a lot of accountants who are just loving that opportunity of we're solving their problem. Like I was generating, my clients will give us 10 years of tax history um, within 15 minutes of clicking on our Facebook ad, and it's all fully automated. We haven't had a phone call with them. We haven't had to do a high pressure sales call with them. They're literally giving us that data so we can go to the IRS, get all their information to give them a full analysis. When we show what we're doing to most accountants, they fall out of their chair because they're chasing clients, dealing with clients, things like that. So, like, that's looking at what's the process from a human behavior level, and like, why does it have to be like that? Why do I have to do a strategy call and this call and that call before I can even get the information from you to find out if I can even help you? Does that make sense?
It does, yes. The second part of my question, when you sort of quasi answer, so I'm going to ask it anyway and see what your reaction is. Why don't you just take on like buying some accounting firms and making a subsidiary company where you kind of funnel your leads to your own and see if a accounting firm out there is profitable and to sort of say, hey, do you want to join the family of sorts?
One step at a time.
Yeah.
We are staying in our lane. Because at some point in time, we would just automate an accounting firm. Because why do I want to onboard an accounting firm when I can onboard accounting agents? And this is just uh, a bird in the hand is worth two in the bush, as they say.
Okay.
So it's just like we know what we're really, really good at.
Gotcha.
We may buy a firm, but we also know that we may well and truly be acquired by an accounting firm because we solve a problem that they don't know how to solve. We solve issues with tax debt that they don't know how to solve. So we can literally bring in profitability to an accounting firm that's where our profit margins are 95% profitability.
So more or less what I'm hearing is like you're going to look at one of the maybe the big five. I think that's what they call themselves now, might be less, accounting firms in the world and basically say like, hey, this is what we do, and like we're just going to acquire you and have you be under us, so our competitors can't get your knowledge and technology and kind of lock you down. Versus saying like becoming one of the big five based on all the automation skills and tools you have. Um, Also, you're kind of leading me to believe that you don't really see 100% value in the book of business of a small accounting firm or medium accounting firm to sort of say we want to be bothered with it. Is that fair?
Yeah, 100%.
Wow, that's cool. I was kind of curious to see what your answer was. You were kind of leaning towards it, but I'm glad you sort of spelled it out for me. That's awesome. So where do you
My
see?
my my golden rule is if you control the leads, you control the profits, right? You control the money. And most small accounting firms get bought because they have a book of business, not because
Mhm.
of they got an acquisition system to acquire a book of business, right? So if I just wanted to, but that's also thinking at like at what rate can I grow locally, right? I'm looking at a national level, right? I have 20 million new clients coming in every single year. How much of that market share can I take, right? So that's just on the tax debt side,
Mhm.
right? So that market is quite huge. We're creating a tool. So most people aren't aware that if you have a tax debt and you go to refinance or purchase a property, you won't get loan approval. So this is a huge problem for mortgage professionals right now. It's because I've got someone with fantastic credit. With they're approved on every other element, but it's only when the bank has gone to do the underwriting risk check, they've gone and seen that you've got a tax debt. So what that means now is you've now got to go get set up an installment plan with the IRS. And as soon as you get an installment plan, you'll get proof of your mortgage, but they'll deduct what now you're having to pay the IRS, which could be a few $100s a month, right? So
Mhm.
the thing is we're creating a tool for mortgage professionals to actually solve that problem so then they can convert that lead because they've got good clients that literally could have a solution in less than a week and then go qualify for that mortgage.
So pretty much even if your company gets acquired, you can almost do like a spin-off and say the accounting firm, Big Five, whatever, bought out this component. I can spin off and do something for mortgage. I could spin off and do something for lawyers. I could and sort of see if you can't target that area. Is that fair?
Yeah, yeah. So I don't have an acquisition plan.
Okay.
Uh,
I don't think you
for
do, but I'm just, you seem like a great,
for at least the
intelligent
next
person.
7 to 10 years. But yeah, because yeah, my goal, we're designing the company to be $100 million plus recurring revenue business annually, but it's going to be a company that no one ever knows, no one ever hears about, and we're like it's just there. I usually say to people, I'm quite happy to be the richest guy in the trailer park, and that's the goal, right?
Hmm.
We don't need lavish offices. I don't need to be H&R Block, but however, I know that H&R Block will may really acquire Intuit, whatever it is. Like all those guys, it's kind of funny because just throughout this year, I've reached out to many of the big um, tax consolidation firms, even the companies that are going after accountants to teach them tax debt. And they would cancel meetings with me. They would blow me off, thinking these guys are a joke. Which then all it did was force us to go, well, hold on, this is even a bigger problem than we realize
Hmm.
because they don't want to even give us the time of day, right? And so now it's just like now we're taking away market share. Now they want to have conversations with us. I'm like, but I was trying to partner with you on certain things 6 months ago, but yet now you guys are you're like, hey, can we meet now? I'm like, go away. I'm like, not interested.
Yeah, you had your chance a few months ago. Yeah. So that's really interesting. Now you mentioned you enjoy being in a trailer park, and you have a wife, and does she help out with the business, or is she just kind of like does something completely different, raises family, just enjoys traveling around the country with you? What's the story there?
My RV life actually started when I got divorced. But there's yeah, so no kids, just me and the dog get to travel around the country, enjoy our life. And my goal was literally to travel around and enjoy the best mountain bike parks around the world,
Okay.
around the country. And everyone was like, "You got to go to Bentonville. You got to go to Bentonville in Arkansas." I'm like, Arkansas, what the hell? And then they're like, well, it's the home of Walmart. And they release like 5 miles of mountain biking trail like every week. And ever since I've been in Arkansas, I've fallen in love with the place. So I'm turning this now into our home base, our base location for what we're doing. And
Gotcha.
yeah, traveling around the country, just like making the most of it. And I love meeting new people, connecting with new people. And there's always something that I'm like, oh, I can go do this. I'm like, I don't know, hold on, focus. I only need one company right now to operate from wherever I am. So yeah, it's kind of cool.
Awesome. Well, this has been a great interview. Thank you so much, Benjamin, for coming on the show. Enjoyed talking with you. I can't see what happens in your future. Do you have any motivational words before we wrap up?
My only motivational words to anyone is at the end of the day, it all doesn't matter. Like you've got to really be happy. You've really got to enjoy what you're doing. And yeah, the more you can focus on your own true happiness, the better your life will be. And it's not necessarily money, it could be whatever it is, but like it's yeah, focus on that and everything will right itself.
Awesome. Well, thank you for being on the show today. This episode was made and produced by i4 Web Services. Visit i4webservices.com to learn more.